The most important thing, right? Change your offer, change your business.
Would you separate a landing page versus a funnel?
Funnel's not optional, right? It's just every single touch point that someone's going to have with you.
How big should some of these pages be? How much video should we include?
When we have a good landing page, all we're trying to get someone to do is to take that next micro step in the funnel, right?
For those who do something like today, what would be like a quick win? Well, we've addressed how humans sell better at certain hours depending on our personality types, but you know what sells 24/7 regardless? A good sales page. So I'm really excited to chat with you about this here, Alisha. Is there a difference? I mean, would you separate a landing page or a sales page versus a funnel? I imagine those when you're helping folks out with this idea of a high converting sales page, I would imagine that's probably just one aspect of an entire funnel, right? The sales page itself.
Exactly. So let's build some foundational knowledge about landing pages and funnels. So first we'll start with a funnel. And basically, a funnel is not optional, right? It's just every single touch point that someone's going to have with you. Maybe your funnel's only 3 steps. Maybe it's like 100 steps. But when I talk about a funnel, I think of all the way from the traffic, what got the click, up until they become a lead. Then there's up until they become a sale. And then there's all of the touch points when they work with you afterwards, right? So Joe Polish and Dean Jackson talk about this, the before, the during, and the after. And I think of my funnel like that, all of these touch points. So a funnel's not optional, right? You have one by default. And the problem is each of these touch points are a potential revenue leak. So businesses and people and freelancers and coaches, doesn't matter, right? And they're leaking all of this revenue out. So what we want to do is make sure that that's not happening. Now, within your funnel, you have landing pages. And to be a real smartass, a landing page is where somebody lands, right? And so for me, a sales page is typically like you want someone to purchase something off of it maybe, whereas a landing page, you might be getting somebody to sign up for a consultation or a sales call or whatever. So that's how I differentiate them.
That's a great tip right up front, the difference between a landing page and a sales page. I honestly never really thought about the two being different like that. I've always just kind of viewed landing page as a sales page. But yeah, I suppose a landing page could be technically a home page on a website, or like you mentioned, a free lead generator. What other type of landing pages are common? Would a blog post be a landing page potentially?
Well, like technically with the definition I just gave, but a homepage is not a landing page, right? A landing page, and this is the fun thing about digital marketing. There's no universal language. It's not like medicine, right? Like what I say, what you say, it's different. Nobody sat down at like the great digital marketer conference and decided that we had to use all the same jargon. So this is what I use. To me, a sales page is when I work more in like the info product space, the e-com space. You can still call a sales page a landing page. But for today's conversation, a landing page is going to be the thing that gets you leads, that gets somebody to sign up to actually want to speak to you. Now, a homepage and a landing page are not the same thing. A homepage, I think of it like your admin person, right? So if we think of your website like it's your digital storefront on every corner around the world, never send your traffic to a homepage. It's like the worst thing you can do, because the point of a homepage is it just helps people to find what they're looking for in the shop. Like each panel is usually a different section of your actual website. Your landing page, right, in this instance, is more like your salesperson. I call it your digital salesperson, your digital appointment setter. And so you can imagine you've like spent all this time and money and energy to collect the click or to get the traffic. And then if you send it to a homepage, that's not trained to make someone take the next step. And when we have a good landing page, and I can obviously rant about this the whole episode, but when we have a good landing page, all we're trying to get someone to do is to take that next micro step in the funnel, right? Not a huge knockout punch. It's just where are they in the stages of awareness, and how can I get them to take the next step with my brand? Micro yeses, not a big knockout punch and then drag them back to your cave and force them to sell, right? That's what we're trying to do.
No, great point. And look, you're in good company here with this show because we're web designers. So I imagine you enjoy talking with web designers because we speak the language of different types of pages and stuff. I'm going to recommend everybody just reiterate exactly what you said right there, Alisha, to clients who don't understand the difference between a home page and a sales page and the other different type of areas where somebody's going to end up on, depending on your funnel. I'm kind of curious. A landing page and a sales page, if we can double click into each one of those, do the components, are there similar components that work for both, or do you recommend a pretty different strategy for a landing page versus a sales page to sell a product? Like, what are the differences between the two as far as like components and what they're comprised of?
So it depends always on like what's the end outcome, right? They're gonna comprise of the same components: a good offer, strong copy, design, and then you code the bad boy up. Like that's the thing. But like you're asking like what physically goes on the page. So I'll start with a landing page, right? And I've made 600 of these in like 1,000 different niches. I'm talking like Brazilian butt lift doctors, porn addiction counselors, quit smoking hypnotists, and then the normal stuff like billion-dollar brands like Linktree and Kogan and Wayflyer. A lot of landing pages, right? Because what a landing page is, it's the key to unlocking scale for my clients. So it's like, okay, you get the click, but then what happens? So the landing page in the funnel is the post-click. Coming back to a landing page, for me, there's 5 ingredients that need to go onto it to make a high converting landing page, because that's the whole point, right? That it actually gets the goal that you want it to achieve. So the first, and one of the most important, is the target market language. So when you reframe it and you're like, okay, this page is our digital appointment setter, it's a digital salesperson. Well, we need to talk in the target market's language. So how do they describe their crappy before state, their dream outcome, so that we can position the business as the vehicle to go from A to B? So even if you're a web designer, right, no one wants web design. They want a dream outcome. So what is that dream outcome? And that's what you're really selling. And what we want to be able to do in our copy on our page is just show, I understand you. I understand you and I get you. Because as soon as you can do that in their words, like you've ripped a page out of their diary, people just assume that you have the solution, right? Like if you understand them, they assume you have the right solution. So that's the first ingredient, target market language. The next is authority marketing. So how do you be an authority? And effectively in business or marketing, you can be a commodity and you can be, or you can be an authority, right? And so guess which one gets paid more? Guess which one gets the better clients? I'll let you guess.
Yeah. Authority, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
Can't
Ding, ding, ding. Excellent. Exactly, right? Like, and this is the thing, because I went from side hustle to full-time freelancer to business owner. And because I study a lot of Dan Kennedy, and I love Dan Kennedy, he's like my Taylor Swift, I know that it doesn't matter. Like, you don't get paid for what you do, you get paid for who you are. So if you don't build that authority, right, you're just another. You're just another. And imagine how many web designers there are on Fiverr and on Upwork, right? And so if you don't build that authority, then you're not going to stand out from the noise. You're just another. And you're going to have to compete for scraps, like shitty clients, and like you're going to have to drop your prices. Now, the third one then is your social proof. So how can you build irrefutable proof of what you do, right? And it's not just slapping some testimonials on there in a slider. It's how can you build that proof in all different ways. And then your next one is your offer. And that's the most important one on the page. The most important thing, right? Change your offer, change your business. And your offer is the thing that's going to get them to take action. So what I see a lot of people get wrong on pages is they'll put this like, it looks pretty, it's this informational page that they put together, and then that's it. Look, how are you going to persuade and motivate someone to take action with you? And so your offer in this context is your lead generation offer. So why should somebody talk to you? We have to get a lead before we can get a sale. So I'll pause the monologue there on landing pages. I know you also wanted to know the difference between a sales page, but yeah. Over to you.
Did you say there were 5? Was there a 5th part?
Yeah, and then I said 4, but there is 5. So you'll just have to wait until it comes to me.
Oh, killing me here.
I know,
okay,
spoiler alert.
Well, now everyone's invested because we all want to know. Yeah, so I'm curious. Those are great. So know your audience, the core result, the outcome, authority, totally agree, social, offer. I would think that would work for the sales page too, but what would be the difference between what you would have as components for a sales page versus a landing page?
So the only difference that might happen on a sales page, and it depends on, and then again, this is my definition. Not everyone's going to agree with a landing page versus sales page, but too bad. this is my podcast episode. So like
This is
a sales
show.
page.
I can't. Yeah, I want
This is
Alicia's. Yep.
it. Too bad, everybody. The sales page needs to sell something, so maybe it needs to be longer. But if your sales page is selling something, so it might be like a course, you might be talking a bit more about what's in the course. You might be talking a bit more about like what the price is, or like all of these different things, right? So it's really like, as long as you're keeping the reframe of this is our digital salesperson. What is the purpose of this digital salesperson? And then making sure that on that page, you're saying, you're not limiting copy, because I know a lot of web designers hate designing long form copy. I know, because I've worked with a lot of them, but the copy is the thing that sells, right? So if you're selling something and it's smaller, you don't need as much copy. But sometimes when you're selling a course like $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, and you don't want to do a sales call, that's kind of the difference, right? Your landing page might be more story-based. It might have more information about what you actually sell, whereas a landing page might just be enough information to qualify the lead and get them on the call. And that is the fifth ingredient of a good landing page, is to qualify and to disqualify in your language and in what you have on the page.
Got it. Love it. Wow, I didn't think we were going to get that to the end. So that's wonderful. So qualify and disqualify. That makes sense that would be safe for the sales page. I like that idea of like 4 big components for a landing, 5 for the sales page. I'm trying to think. I like that terminology of like a salesperson as these different entities, because it's interesting to put like almost a persona to a landing page in a sales page, where I like that idea of landing being just that, a landing page, probably pretty brief, probably pretty quick. Get them to the door, and then the sales page is where people, especially before putting their details in and clicking pay, they're probably going to want to know, depending on what the product is, what they're getting into. I imagine this is top of mind just because my wife and I talked about getting a new car. As I'm thinking about the godforsaken example of going to a car dealership, I'm thinking about it like that now. Like, I would imagine a landing page is kind of the guy who's showing you around, who's like, yeah, we have this and speaking all those components. But then when we go in to actually sell, they turn you over to the person who actually does the full sale. So, yeah, I'm wondering if it's kind of like that. Do you view those kind of like that too, as almost like different entities, whether it's a persona or whatever, landing page versus sales page?
Yeah, I think for me, it really depends on probably like what industry I'm talking about. So I work a lot in lead generation. And so me, it's like, I could call them a sales page, but they're landing pages, right? The thing is, on a landing page, you're still selling something. On those landing pages, I'm selling the consultation. I'm selling like someone talking to a salesperson. And although there's no monetary exchange, right? There's no money exchange. There's still time and value from the prospect, from the lead, being exchanged for an email address, right? And in a lot of instances, that's more scary. Oh, I'm going to give you my phone number, my email, my information. Are you going to harass me? Do you have commission breath? Are you going to be annoying? So it's like you're always selling something. Even at the ad level or on an email, you're selling the click, right? So it's like you have to persuade someone to take action. You're just selling the click. And this is where those micro yeses come in. So your email might go to a landing page, and then that's selling the consultation. Like, hey, come on this call. We're going to give you immense value no matter what. It's going to be this awesome thing. You're going to get X, Y, Z plus a bonus tangible thing. And then you go on that. And then the next step might be the sales call. So you're selling something, right? But so yeah, I think of it more like that. Hopefully that makes sense.
That does. Yeah, actually, this is a great challenge for me, because I think I've notoriously undervalued landing pages for free lead generators and email signups. I've tended to spend a lot more time on the full-on sales pages for a paid product versus signups. But every time I talk with somebody who is conversion focused, there's always a good reminder for me to like put more oomph into a landing page to get an email address to make that like a sales page. So I love that idea of selling a click, whether it is a paid click or a sign up click.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, especially creatives, right? The word selling makes you feel like you need a cold shower. It's very uncomfortable. It's like, oh, why does this chick keep talking about selling? I'll reframe it. It's persuasion. And here's the thing, right? If what you do can genuinely help somebody, it is now your moral and ethical obligation to go and find as many of those people as humanly possible and persuade them to work with you, right? Like, that's your job. Like, you have a talent, you can help people. And I think it's a good reframe. Like, you're always persuading someone to do something. And otherwise it's like, what's the intent of what you're putting out there? What's the intent of your marketing? It's to make you money and to help people and make impact. So you need to construct it in such a way to achieve that.
So the term sales can often make people feel icky and slimy, like I said, but there's also another term that I think gives that same reaction, and it's persuasion. Now, that's in your brand, so I imagine you're totally comfortable and confident with that.
I hate that word.
Persuasion, I think, just naturally sounds like sales. It sounds like, and this is just and I have no problem with it, but just when I think about the term persuasion, I think of like, oh, you need this, you're almost trying to like, well, persuade somebody to purchase, but that doesn't mean obviously that you're coercing somebody who shouldn't buy. To your point, you have a solution for somebody who has a need, and it is our job to persuade them as to why they need that. Can you dive into that term persuasion? Like, have you found that people view that just like sales with feeling icky sometimes?
I would say in my world, I hang out with a lot of direct response marketers. So
Okay.
they're like, yeah, let's persuade some people. so
How
no,
many
but
cowboys are you working with, Alisha?
like, I've got a whole ranch of them, like 100 at least.
Okay.
But no, I can understand that. And so let me take you on a quick side quest, right? And like, because there's like a limiting belief that people have, and it holds them back from making money, and it holds them back from making sales. And if salespeople stopped selling, the whole world would stop. Like, that's what would happen, right? So I'm from a small country town, 800 people, no traffic lights. There's a pub, which is like a bar, I guess, if you don't have pubs. There's a cemetery, you go and you come out. That's it. My first jobs were in sales when I moved into bigger cities. I didn't even know what sales was, didn't know what that meant, whatever, right? To me, when I went in there, it was like, okay, I'm just helping people. I'm asking questions. Those questions then tell me, can I help you, yes or no? If no, kiss the fish, release it back into the ocean. If yes, that was the trigger in my brain that I have to persuade this person to work with me. I can help them. I just discovered that, right? Like a doctor, I diagnosed, I prescribed, and now it's my job to persuade them. Now, why do we have to persuade people? Because you have to snap them out of inertia, right? People are going to keep doing the same thing unless you can come in and stop them from doing that. And so the clients that we work with, they genuinely help people, right? But if we just put out wishy-washy marketing out there, like, oh, we do this, come and work with us, it wouldn't work. We literally have to persuade people and shake them, saying, you have this problem, I can help you. And you have to agitate that problem, and you have to persuade them, because otherwise people don't take action to change their lives. And that's what, if you sell something good, like, that's what I do. I change a business. It's like, I change their life, I make them money, and I help them to increase their impact. So I think it's really selfish if you're too scared to persuade somebody, and it means that you don't really believe in your product, in my opinion, or your service.
So you just hit on an interesting term in there, agitate the problem. Now, what's fascinating about this, I've had a lot of conversations with some of my members of my community and colleagues about marketing towards either agitating the problem, like just putting it right in their face, making sure they know what the problem is, versus a more like positive start, like looking at the result or looking at the solution. What is your take? I'm assuming you're familiar with StoryBrand, with Donald Miller's framework.
Yeah, yep.
So there, kind of one of the things that's there, it's pretty prevalent, is the idea of really agitating that problem or where they're at. But sometimes I've learned, or at least I've discovered, that if people already know what the problem is, they just want they just want a result. They know what the problem is, and sometimes that can kind of push them away. What are your thoughts on when to use the agitate the problem versus like show the result or show a brighter road ahead? Is there a time for both? Do you prefer one or the other?
Yeah,
basically
you always
leading with a bright pasture, or leading with here's your problem. That's it right there, doctor style.
Yeah, so spoiler alert, I have an opinion on this, but we always follow a very simple direct response framework, right? PASS, problem, agitate, solve. This is your problem. This is why it's shit. Here's my solution for you. And then there's a bunch of other stuff on the page, but that's a very simple framework we'll use. Now, depending on where somebody is in the stages of awareness, Eugene Schwartz's stages of awareness, you could also think of it as the buyer's journey. Depends on how much you need to agitate that problem. Okay. So nobody wakes up one day and wants what you have. They go through these stages of awareness. And so if you're talking to somebody and basically it goes from unaware that they have a problem to most aware and they know what you sell and they're just looking for the right offer. And then there's problem aware and then there's solution aware, right? And they're walking through these stages of awareness. So if we think of it like, and I'll just double click on that in case people haven't heard of this, because in my opinion, this is one of the most important concepts in marketing to understand, because all we're trying to do is enter the conversation going on in your head. So you're correct, right? If somebody's most aware and they're like, I know I want this thing, I'm looking for it, and you're writing this long page and it's like, oh, I bet you've got this problem. I bet you got all these things going on as well. It's like, yeah, okay, cool. Like, have you got the solution? So this is why this is important, right? So let's think of it like you've got a cough, because everyone's had a cough. And if let's just say that you're problem aware, I know I've got a cough, but I don't know why I've got a cough. You start researching it, and now it's like, okay, I've got bronchitis. What am I going to do? So now I start looking for solutions. I could go to a doctor. I could get some Chinese herbal medicine. I could get some strepsils. Like, now I'm assessing options. Okay, now I've decided I want a doctor. Now I'm assessing different doctors. Now I've chosen this doctor. I've gone to his website and he has a new patient offer. So tell me if that doesn't make sense, because
Makes sense.
I'm freeballing that explanation, but people go through this journey no matter what, right? So your question is, well, how much should we agitate their problem? It depends where they are in that journey. So we always follow problem, agitate, solve. And you always want to show that you understand them. So you do have to explain the problem. But when I'm doing a Google Ads campaign for a finance client, and they might do B2B loans, right? I'm not going to write this long sales page where it's like, dear business, you've got cash flow problems and you're not very good at running, like you're not very good at monitoring your cash, are you? And I bet these are the issues happening. Like, I would never do that, because someone's like, got a bleeding neck problem. They're like, no, I know I've got cash flow problems. Can you give me money or not? So that's one component of it. The other component of it is the energetics of it all, right? And so this might also be what you're kind of talking about. If you go hardcore on the problem and everything's doom and gloom and you get them all worked up, and then they come to you in that state for a sales call, that's not the kinds of clients you want to work with. So you want to show them, you want to show them that you understand the problem. You want to agitate it a bit, because you got to make them take action, or they're just going to go back to doing the same thing and not change their life. But if you get them whipped up into a frenzy where they're freaking out, instead of giving them hope for a better future, what sort of business do you want to run? Who are you going to attract, and what sort of energy will be in your business?
I think you very rightly just nailed why I don't love the agitating side of sales, is because I don't like that energy, and I don't want people to have that energy, especially with, like, for example, when they come into my world, I don't want them to feel like I've got all these problems and they're in that state. I want them to be more of a, like, I'm really excited about what lies ahead. And that's kind of what I aim for.
Yes, that's good.
As a web designer, I found this too. I worked with a lot of people who I saw other web designers go too far on the problems and agitations. Clients were like, I already know my website sucks. What's the solution? What does the bright road ahead look like? So that's why I'm always curious about the two.
That's the stages of awareness, right? Because everyone hates their website. Everyone hates it. Not me, because I worked with very good web designers. My brief was, I want somebody to shit their pants when they see the design. And then it's neon stoic. And I'm sure that most people hate their website, right? And that's a great example of, you don't need to dig into that. People know. People know they're getting tens of thousands of people a month or whatever, and nothing's converting. Like, they know. Talk about the solution, because that example, they're further down the buyer's journey.
Good point. So a little more problem, a little more agitation for folks who may not be aware or are early in the cycle versus, typically when I would sit down with somebody as a web designer, we were a little further along, especially if it's a referral or a lead. Like, they already know the problems. But I suppose sometimes agitating some of those pain points or challenges may help to persuade them, since we're in that terminology, to invest. If they're like, oh, well, yeah, I didn't think about that. It's like, for example, to make this practical, a shitty website is costing clients hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially, or maybe more. So clients may not think about that. They may not think about, well, what actually is a bad website cost me? How much traffic are they getting? They don't even know. So that's where, as I'm thinking about this, okay, you're already helping me here, Alisha, because I'm starting to feel a little more comfortable with how to do this in a better way. But that's kind of how I would use agitation,
Yeah.
but sprinkling it in a
Yeah.
nice way.
And use it in a way that feels true to yourself, right? Like for me, I've done the thing where I've watched the sales bros and I've tried to do the testosterone fueled sales, and it's like it just feels ick. And so for me, like it's like when someone's coming on a sales call with me, it's like, okay, you're coming on for a free consultation. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions like a good doctor. My goal is to see, do I have to amputate your arm or give you an aspirin? That's the goal. And can I even help you? If I can help you, great. I'm going to show you the value I bring to you, which often means I have to agitate the problem you're having. So a great way that I do this in what we do is I'll just say, okay, so you're currently at 5 million. You're trying to get to 10 million. We've got a $5 million goal. We've got a $5 million gap to solve. Is that right? And I've done a lot of other maths. And people are like, oh, yeah, I never thought of it like that. And it's like, yeah, that's a pretty big goal. And now it's like, well, whatever I tell you I cost is going to seem pretty small now, isn't it? So that's like for what you were saying, like you can run the numbers. So your website's currently converting at 1%. It should be converting at 5%. What's the LTV of one of your customers? What does your sales team close at? Okay, cool. So this year you had have been converting at 5%. That would have been an extra 2.2 million. Like that's the size of the problem I want to solve for you. To me, and I know you'll correct me if you don't agree, that feels like a nice way to agitate it where you are just doing your due diligence to show them where they're losing money in their business and then go on, do you want me to plug that hole up for you? I'll fix it.
I think that's very well said. Totally agree. And it is a nice approach. The reason I mentioned that, the reason I like that we're spending some time on this is more and more I do see outside of even like the bro entrepreneur culture, I just see web designers gravitate towards like, does your website suck? Not getting traffic? All these are the terms that it just seems like they just dwell on agitation too much. But to your point, agitation could be, well, they just don't know what's going on because of their crappy website, which is the problem. So they don't know those agitations. I really like that idea of framing it as like conversion rate, their lifetime value of a customer, and then how much a little boost, maybe like a 1% change could end up being for them, which showcases the value of a website. And that's how web designers can charge 10, 20, 30K for something they may have charged 3,000 for. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense, that PAS framework. I've heard some similar ones, but I like that one's 3. That's easy to remember.
Easy. Yep. And on that, for the web designers, because I get hit up a lot by a multitude of different people, video editors, thumbnail designers, GHL experts. Like I'm getting all the messages, right? And I think that a really simple question that will help everybody to dial in that marketing and really hit the bullseye with that is this question: what are you really selling? Right? So you're selling a dream outcome. Like that's what you sell. The website, the design, like cool, but like what's the outcome that you actually sell? And what we were just talking about, Josh, that's what you sell, right? You sell like unlocking revenue from the, like this is, the website is your digital storefront on every corner around the world. People are going to walk into it, and if it's confusing, they're not going to buy anything. And I always liken it to, because I've done a bunch of websites, right? And I do funnels. So it's like, I always find it really funny that businesses will spend hundreds of thousands or millions on their physical store fit out that might have 50 people walk into it a month. And how many people walk into your digital store? Hundreds of thousands, right? Tens of thousands, it doesn't matter, but it's way more. And then they scrimp and they'll do some sort of $100 Fiverr deal and they'll never invest in it. It's a sales enablement tool. It's an investment in your business. Anyway, hopefully that will help some people with their proposals, because that's how I sell $40,000 websites and more in my time.
Yeah, no, for storefronts especially, I think it's easy to devalue web traffic and how much that means. Look, the reality is too, I mean, I think about this a lot of times as a podcast host now, like with downloads, I have to remember every tick of a number on a download is an actual person listening in their car or washing the dishes or mowing the lawn or whatever they're doing. And it's easy, I think, sometimes to see web traffic and numbers is just data, but those are actual people. So I
Yeah.
love that idea too, that remembrance, especially, I mean, clients need to hear this the most, but even for web designers, traffic on a website, even if you're getting 50 page views on a service, like that's 50 people who looked at
Yeah.
that. So great reminder on the importance of a website. So there's sales tip for everybody as a web designer, to relay to
Yeah.
clients right there.
And I think maybe like web designers, but we all do, right? Like we have that curse of knowledge. So we're like, duh, you need a website, you big dummy. Like, but then we struggle to articulate it into their words to make it make sense. So what I was doing in that example, because I want to just show people like how I was thinking about it so they can take it, is it's like what Russell Brunson talks about. It's an epiphany bridge, a light bridge, right? It's like this for this. So if you liken something back to something they already understand, store fit out, website, right? So if you can make it make sense in that way, I find that that's really good for people, especially when they're not sophisticated in marketing or web design.
Let's dive into where the people are going to move forward. So and I don't know, what would you rather focus on, Alisha? I want to make sure you're having fun with this one. Would you rather talk specifically landing pages or sales pages, or would you group them together?
Well, I would say landing pages in terms of how to get more leads, because I'm imagining that might help. Like that's kind of going to be everybody's focus, right? Like how can I get more leads who turn into buyers and get more web designs in 2025? That'll be the main thing, right?
Let's do that.
Awesome.
Cool. The reason I asked is because the nitty-gritty of the components on like a landing page, I feel like there are probably some time-tested strategies that I don't think we were recording yet when you said, like, you talked to a lot of people who are focused on tools and platforms, but it's just the time-tested strategies that hold true for sales in general and persuasion. But I would love to dive into like some of the specifics. For example, I'm wondering, how big should some of these pages be? How much video should we include? What are some of the trends you're seeing that work well on these pages? Is it text heavy or more brevity? All the above. I'm kind of curious to dive into on this. So let's start with just time-tested persuasion. What are some of those things that don't matter whether you're using WordPress or ClickFunnels or whatever you're using? What are some of the time-tested things that work on landing pages?
So effectively, when I think about marketing, it falls into this equation. Whether I'm creating something or I'm hiring somebody, it's psychology plus economics times technology. So technology is just an accelerator, right? 1,000 times 0 is still 0. One of the biggest questions I get is like, oh, what do you build your landing pages on? Like, I'll tell you, but can you answer this question? Who is your target market and why do they buy from you? What is the language that they use? And that's the psychology component, right? We sort of spoke about that. So a lot of people get obsessed with hacks and tricks and silver bullets. But if you can master this one thing, this is what's going to make the difference in your business, in your marketing, and in your sales, right? And it's the thing that hasn't changed for hundreds of years, and it's not going to change for hundreds more. It's the psychology. And so all of those questions you were just listing off, how long should the page be? What needs to be on there? How much video? It depends. And what does it depend on? Your target market. What do they want? Who are they? Most people don't have an insanely in-depth understanding of who they're trying to work with. And that's crazy, right? Because as business owners or as freelancers, we exist to serve people. We exist to solve their problems. And if you don't understand that person, it's very hard to do well in business and to extract their money. And I say that in the most positive way possible, because people that's what needs to happen, right? So we have this equation. To answer all of those questions, you need to understand your target market. Then you need to understand questions like, where are they in that stage of awareness? What's their crappy before state? How do they articulate that? What's that dream outcome, etc.? And then the way that you would or the foundational part of like building the page or doing any marketing, right, is marketing's just inputs and outputs, garbage in, garbage out. So a lot of people don't get their target market avatar right. That's the number one input. And then garbage trickles in throughout the rest of it. And so it's funny, right? Like everybody asks me like, oh, how long should a landing page be? Like that copy's too long. No, there's no such thing as copy that's too long, just too boring. And the copy needs to be the length that it needs to be, right? Because with that reframe, this is our digital appointment setter. This is our digital salesperson. You're not going to ever tell a salesperson, hey, keep that headline a bit more creative. It's like, no, just have a conversation with the person and move it down. So I'll pause there, but I like to try and teach people how to think and not just how to do, because the reality is there's no silver hacks or silver bullets for stuff, right? Like, you do have to think a little bit. And you need these core programming into your brain. So no matter what happens when COVID hits or there's a recession or whatever, right? Like, if you've built your skill set based on tactics, you can't deal with that. You need to base it on strategy and psychology.
I get the question a lot of like, how long should a homepage be or a sales page be, which is kind of why I was playing devil's advocate a little bit on this, because I do wonder, like, maybe there's fairness in trends, but we had a conversation recently about Apple and their sales pages about conversions. And it's almost like, I'm trying to remember who I was talking to about this, but it was a good point about, you don't necessarily want to take the same strategy that a company like Apple would use for a sales page for like a Ma and Pa local company, where that needs a totally different strategy. And I don't even know what conversion looks like for Apple on their sales page, but so many people use Apple and are diehard Apple people that they're just going to buy it. In some cases, I've found like longer pages are good for like the folks who, or at least this is my rule of thumb, that's worked for me at least, is to make, if I make a longer sales page, to make it so somebody could skim quickly and then move forward. Or if somebody wants more information, they still have the option to go further if they want to, but I don't make everyone go down the whole page to finally reach the destination. That's my rule of thumb. Do you think I'm on track, or would you advise against that? Or is there a time for both?
I think it's just always
a short page versus a long page.
It just always comes back to what's the outcome. Like, the page has an intent, right? And how much persuading do you have to do before somebody will take the intent? So if I'm working with a coaching client and their market hasn't decided, like, they don't know that a coach is for them, they don't know what a coach is, but they know their problem, that's going to be a much longer page, because my digital salesperson needs to have a much longer conversation. When I have a client in the finance space that does payday loans and there's a mum who can't feed her kids because her shift was cut, I don't need our long page. I just need this is what we do. This is what's in it for you. Here's some proof that you can trust us, right? So it always comes back to that target market and psychology. And yeah, I'll leave it there. So it just depends. Classic marketer answer, but it depends.
Video. How do you feel about video?
I think it's good. Next question. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I'm just curious, the sales videos, whatever the case is, and both for testimonials too. I've just heard, I've heard different opinions on how much video should be on a landing page or a sales page. Again, I've tended to go for like heavy on the video and a decent landing page, at least for my Community Web Designer Pro. It's a one-page site right now. It's basically a big landing/sales page. It's a sales page. So, but I give the option at any point on the page that you can join now. If somebody hears the podcast and they're like, yep, I'm ready to join, they go there, they can join immediately without having to go through everything. Video, I mean, I've really tried to encourage my students to go with video, especially as a service provider like a web designer, because it builds so much trust and authority, even just having any sort of video on there. Have you seen, and maybe that's a depends question, but have you seen video more help with conversions across certain industries versus those who don't utilize video, whether it's like the founder or whether it's the person as a service provider? I guess the short question is like, how valuable is video still in 2025 now?
It's insanely valuable if executed correctly, right? And so to build on what you were saying, the positives of video is no one does it. It builds authority. It like helps you it gives you like another medium for communication. So if I just wrote something down, that's just reading. But right now you get my tonality, you get my body language, you get to hear the words. So it's a different way to communicate, and it can come back to, well, how does your market like to consume information? But typically, yes. And then it's like, okay, well, what are the types of videos? You can have a VSL, a video sales letter. You can have a webinar. You can have an about us. You can have video testimonials. But my caveat is not all video content is created the same. And merely ticking the box and putting a video on your page doesn't mean that you've executed it correctly, right? And it comes back to like research, strategy, execution. And that's how like, and then optimize and learn and adjust. So if you don't research, you don't like actually understand your market, you don't understand why you're making the video. If you don't plan out, well, what's the purpose of this video? What's the intent? What's going to be the storyline? How am I going to execute on it? And then if you, like my first YouTube videos, if you look like you're in a content cupboard with a gun off to the side and the camera is really like poor quality, which like don't get hung up on that stuff and we can unpack that, and the sound's crap and you're like, hey, like come and buy my stuff. Like, yeah, you've done video, but you've cooked the execution. So it's like it's not of a like, should you have video on there? Well, yeah, but only if you do it with intent and you execute it properly, right? So that's my answer.
That's good. That's fair. Yeah, I came from a world, I feel like when I started in web design, I got more comfortable in video, and I just found that it worked out so well that not many other web designers were focusing on video on their sales pages or service pages, and I felt like those were huge for me. So, and it just makes sense too, as you mentioned. There's another level of sensory with a video versus just words that you're seeing, and you can make a feeling and get a vibe going for somebody with words and good copy for sure, and design visually. But there is something about hearing something and all those working together. You can't hear copy often. Some people can if they know the author, you know, the person writing. But when I put myself in the shoes of a client, they may see something might look nice. They may get a feeling, they may understand it, but hearing, I think, is just, video truly is kind of the trifecta of all those senses. All that to say, I'm a big proponent for sure. So coming
No,
from the guy with a video podcast.
I totally agree. And this is the thing, right? Just because you're not good on video now doesn't mean you won't be. And that's maybe like what you're alluding to, right? A lot of people, they feel hold back because you're very polished. You have this beautiful, cool mic that I'm jealous of. You have great lighting. You're very charismatic. You don't say like you're very good at what you do. But I'm sure you didn't start there, right? Like, what have you done? Like 400 episodes on this podcast or something? I didn't start. I mean, like I'm very extroverted. I love talking, but I only got better at framing my ideas and being able to articulate a coherent sentence by doing. So although I'm saying to not cook the execution of your video, you will also never get to a level that you want to be unless you give it a red hot crack, as we say in Australia.
The reality is, whether you do a video on your website or on a sales call, it's like you're going to be talking with clients as web designers anyway. Like, you might as well have them meet you on the website before they even meet you, because it builds authority, builds trust, builds likability. And I totally agree. Like, no one needs to have my setup to start, but any chance of getting on video, even if it's a screen recording and you're not on camera yet, that's a great way to go to. I often tell people to start with just like a PowerPoint presentation type deal. Just guide somebody through like that before they even get to you, just to start off. And yes, Alisha, you're totally correct. My my first foray into videos, I have a business course, and one thing I show in there is I was invited to our local Chamber of Commerce, and they had a swivel chair, and I was kicked back in the entire video.
Oh, like Dr. Evil style.
On YouTube, my hands were like I was praying, and I was swiveling like crazy. Looking back at it now, it's the most cringeworthy thing ever. So, yeah, come a long way since then, but which has helped. I mean, honestly, and that's just why I'm a big proponent of video as a whole. Brevity is something I'd love to chat about real quick, because are you familiar with Derek Sivers, the author? So one of the things he's known for is brevity. In fact, one of the books I recommend to everybody I work with is Hell Yeah or No. Super fun book, and it's super brief. You could, I mean, I'm a slow reader, and I could bust through this in a day. So had him on the podcast a while back, and we were chatting about brevity and about how I think a lot of people in the age of just overwhelm of information, how much power there can be with a stripped down, super brief message, particularly on a landing page or a sales page. I still fall on a sales page of like having plenty of info there for people who want to dive into it. But for a landing page specifically, since we're kind of hitting on that, for like a lead generator to grow traffic, my thought would still be to have it be pretty brief. What's your thoughts on brevity and about taking something that maybe 1,000 words and condensing it to 100 if it could be, or maybe, 500 or something?
I think it still comes back to the core principles of, well, you should test that, but where are they in that stages of awareness? Because the landing page length is as long as it needs to be. And so I will never cut down a page to try and hit, like the philosophy of what you're saying, agree. Because a lot of people are very long-winded and their messaging gets very lost, right? Like the words spew a bunch of stuff and then it gets very lost. But in the
calling me out publicly here.
That's right. You word vomiting everywhere. Clean it up. But so the philosophy of that, yes, but it's very contextual, right? And so where people fall into the trap of is they want everything to be short and sharp, and then it kind of can suck the soul out of it as well, right? And when you're writing your copy, and the two most important things are your offer and your copy. And I know everyone listening is a web designer, and it's important to have good design, very important, right? But I've seen the fuggliest ClickFunnels pages outperform beautifully designed stuff. And I've watched, I don't even know if it's hundreds or thousands of hours of user sessions, because I've been doing this for like 10 years, right? I've watched a lot of heat maps, and people get distracted by the design. Like, the purpose of the design is to be complementary, to show people where to look and to show people where to read. And going back to your Apple example, I've done a lot of websites, as in, like, I'm not the designer, but like the strategy and the project management and that. And the amount of people that have said, I want Apple's website. I'm like, do you have $1 million? Number one. Number two, Apple's brand is really big, right? So it can be short and sharp. Like, they've been around since like 75. When have they been around since? Like a long, long time. They've built market. They've built clout. A lot of us haven't built clout. We have to explain who we are and what we do and how it helps you. So,
good point.
Yeah, I don't have a straight answer for you on brevity. I would just say be careful of stripping out the soul. When I write copy, I want it to feel like it's one-to-one. I want you to read it and feel like we're sitting together and I can get my tonality into it. And I don't want to make it short and sharp and take out the soul.
That has been the reoccurring theme. Every person I've had on over the past couple of years who has either been a conversion rate optimization or copywriting, messaging, the common theme is talk, like conversion based, conversation based. And I've really tried to approach it. I have a newsletter, and this is timely too, because more recently I had one, I forget what the topic was, but it was about, I sprinkled in about our regional tax income agency. It's called RITA. And every time I get something from RITA, I just want to burn it and find their headquarters and, go off. But because it's just extra taxes basically. But in the newsletter, I had a fairly professional newsletter. And then I was like, freaking idiot RITA showed up in my mailbox again. And I just talked about how it was a regional income tax agency. And I had a couple of replies going like that. They loved the conversational tone of how I would talk in real life, just calling them an idiot and stuff. And I'm reminded of how like that stuff does stand out. That was the soul of that was my agitation towards this freaking income tax regional agency that's extra taxes. So that's what resonated. What was me saying idiot Rita in that entire newsletter of like really good business advice, but idiot Rita is what I got back.
And it's interesting, right? Because that's just your brand tone of voice. And so the closer that I can capture how I talk, and I'm not good at the righty right. I'm good at the talky talk. So even when I'm writing copy, so for example, when I was doing Linktree's page, like $1 billion tech brand, I was like, okay, this is going to be my digital appointment setter. What needs to do? And then I would record myself being a salesperson, like walking someone through, well, this is what Linktree does. This is why we exist. Here's what you need to know. And then I take that copy and I put it onto the page, right? And it's funny you say that. So I've got this sales guy in my team, and he's so cool. He's got like bleach blonde hair. He's like a semi-pro boxer. He lives in Bali. And when you talk to him, he's insanely charismatic, right? And that's why he's a sales guy on my team. Like, he's great to talk to. And when he writes an email, this is something that we're working on, it's like he's this like buttoned up, full-on crazy corporate professional person.
The LinkedIn version of him.
Yeah, using these words. And we literally were talking about this yesterday, why it's fresh. And I was like, dude, like, who you are in person is not how you write and like your written communication. Like, and I was like, I don't want you to like, and you're professional. So it's like, I don't want you to like tone it down and be calling them like buddy and pal and I don't know, whatever else. But get that, like, when you can like master getting your personality onto pen and paper, your numbers will start to change because there's friction in your own personal brand. It feels like I'm talking to two different people. And a big thing is like, if you're B2B, right, people think you have to be super professional, and professional means sounding like some sort of stuffy accountant. And that's not it. Like, I would say I'm very professional, but I'm very myself. Like, how I am on this call is how I'm going to be when I shut the computer and go and chat to somebody. And I try and emulate that in all of our copy and everything that we do. It's brand consistency, but people can feel that energy coming through as well. So it's, really interesting. Now, do you call people idiots more in your newsletter, or what are you doing?
All the time. Yeah. It
Great.
Well.
Like idiot of the week.
It just depends on if I'm really, fired up about something, but
it's great.
It's definitely
human.
Learned over. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I don't think it's human, right? Like people want to build a connection with you, and we're scared of that vulnerability, but the vulnerability is what forms connections, and that's all we're trying to do. Is we're just trying to form connections with our people.
How the hell have we not talked about AI in a whole hour? I mean, that's a whole nother thing. With all the AI movement going on. I mean, I'm just such a proponent of be real, be human, be you.
Mm-hmm.
I will talk, and actually it's one reason I recommend doing video for folks is because if you talk on a video, that could be your transcript that you use for a sales page or for a landing page. That doesn't make it so stuffy if you're worried about, the LinkedIn profile version of you. So, I totally agree. Human all the way. Yeah. AI. I mean, I don't know how far you want to go into this, but, as somebody who works on high converting sales pages and funnels and stuff, I mean, what's your take on AI as a whole right now, whether it's just a language model or like there's full on AI builders and stuff now? Are you pro AI, excited about it, or are you like, this is just ripping off? Yeah. What are your thoughts on AI?
So I'll be upfront. I'm a boomer in a 30-year-old's body when it comes to technology, but I am pushing myself to get better. And luckily my co-founder is very good. And I am very worried about a lot of businesses because a lot of businesses don't even know what a CRM is, and they're not even using CRMs. And so going back to that equation I spoke about earlier, psychology plus economics times technology. Technology is an accelerator. What's the point of having a shiny sports car if you don't know how to drive it? So AI is really important, but there's going to become this big divide where you have to have good inputs, outputs, right? Garbage in, garbage out. You as an expert have to have good inputs, right? And then the AI at the moment can do, let's say, 60 to 80%. Now, the difference comes in you being an expert, being able to take what the AI gives you, knowing if it's good or not, right? Like, is this even good? And then polishing it that extra 20%. So to be honest, when I'm hiring now, I ask people about their AI systems. If they don't know how to use AI yet, they're not coming into my team. They need to know how to use AI and how to accelerate their job. So AI to me is like efficiency as an expert, because I am an expert and so is everyone watching this. I figure out how to use AI to speed me up, to do a better job, to have to hire less people, but I'm not using it to replace critical thinking, creativity. Even there's some things in our onboarding experience that there's people like, why don't you automate that? And I'm like, no, I like the human touch. Like, we'll make a custom GIF, a WWE GIF for everyone who we close, and it's like their competitor's name, and it's like John Cena getting Hulk Hogan and like jumping him down, and it's like I do that manually and it takes 5 minutes, right? And it's like, but that's like a human touch. And but the problem with AI, you opened up this can of worms, it's your fault. But the problem with AI is everyone's trying to like efficiencies, automate, and it's like, no, like I think it's going to skew so hard that the businesses who can figure out how to use AI and still have that really good community human connection, and I train my team on client experience. Like, I love this book called Unreasonable Hospitality, one of the best books I read this year. So AI will speed you up. You have to be an expert. You have to be able to put good inputs in. You have to be able to discern when it spits out an output, whether it's good or not. Most people are going to be lazy. I've already seen studies where people are like, we replaced our whole sales team with AI. Look how good we are. We've saved all this money. And now they've come out and said, Yeah, so what happened was, and it
Yeah.
wasn't good, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my opinion.
The cringy thing for me is when I hear AI agency, I'm like, oh,
Yeah, let's suck the
where,
soul out.
yeah, suck the soul out of it. Yeah, suck the human out of it. I've really more so been challenged, and this has encouraged me too to really go back to my personal experience on what I learned as a web designer and
Mm,
agency owner, and utilizing story more and more and more, lived real world experience, because that's the one thing
mm,
that AI cannot do. It cannot
yeah.
live a real world experience in the flesh. So no, I totally agree. I love that frame of using AI as more of an accelerant towards
Mm,
something that's much bigger and much more
yeah.
important. Um, yeah, love that. Alisha, we're well past an hour. I can't believe has this been fast? This has been super fast.
Yeah, it
I feel like
actually has.
we're just getting started. And again, early for you. So I really want to thank you for getting up so early and for your time. One final question here for you. But before we get there, where would you like people to go to connect more with you? And I think you've got a little something for folks too, right?
I got a little offer. I got a little free gift. But if you'd like to connect, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on there shaking my wares for the algorithm. But LinkedIn's very good. We get a lot of business from there. So LinkedIn, Instagram, but YouTube is my main thing. I'm very passionate about talking about landing pages and funnels and showing what we're doing in our business. So I'm always like launching those things to help people out. But as a free gift to make sure I'm giving value back, I have got something called an endless leads gift effectively. And so if you go to persuasionexperience.com/Josh, that will have pretty much like all these things that we've spoken about in a really easy to follow format. So you can just go through, get the templates, get the videos, get more resources and trainings that you can take some of these preliminary things that we spoke about and then go and build on that and create your landing page and create your offer to get more leads.
I'm so glad you mentioned that and you have that resource for everybody. We'll have that linked in the show notes for this one, just because I knew we were talking about some broader topics here. So I know you have some like tactile, practical things to follow along with. So I'll make sure we have all that linked up, and definitely your YouTube and everything. I love what you have going on. I love your style. I love how real it is. So yeah, I really appreciate it, Alisha. I'm kind of curious for those who specifically they would like to just do something like today to get a little bit of boost of conversions on their sales page or landing page. What would be like a quick win as a tip for a landing page, for example?
Mm-hmm. So focus on your above the fold. That's before somebody scrolls. Make a really good headline, and that format can be what we do and how it benefits you. And then really though, the number one thing that you can change is your offer. Like change your offer, change your business. When we got our offers right and finally ate our own dog food, like that took us from a couple of freelancers sticky tape together to a 7-figure business now on the way to 8-figure business. If you can nail that offer, right? Like that's how everybody builds a business, on the back of a strong offer. That is what will change the game for you.
Sweet. All right. Alisha, thank you so much. We'll have all your links in the show notes and your free resource. Really appreciate that. And yeah, I really appreciate being able to get some of your insight and wisdom on this. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.